I am curious if you looked at the correlation between grit and social media use. Because
Yeah.
I really I've been really getting to Cal Newport's new book. He is so laser focused on minimizing distractions, and he's
Mhm.
so good at focusing. He's such a great example of a human that can focus so intently on what matters most to him and ignore distractions. I would say he has a lot of grit, but you know, there's something he has. He's such a good concentrator. I'm just wondering if you looked at the correlation between grit as a personality trait and your online, the quality of the use of it.
I haven't. I guess your hypothesis, Scott, is that gritty people tend not to spend hours and hours and hours on social media. Is that right?
I guess you call you got
Yeah.
it too.
Well, could you take it one step further and say gritty people have less of an affinity for dopamine?
I don't think it's that people who are gritty don't want to have like positive stimulation. I think that the thing is about somebody who is really gritty, like Will Shortz, right? Like how do you not get bored of crossword puzzles when it's all you do and it's only thing you've really done puzzles since you were like 13 or something, right? Like how is that possible? I think what is so admirable to me about really gritty people is that they are able to derive pleasure and even a sense of surprise and delight and novelty from getting into the nuances of a craft, right? When you talk to like a 3-star Michelin chef, are they bored of food because they've been thinking about it for like their whole life? No, because everything is new. Like, they get in a new case of artichokes and it's like new and they're seeing all these nuances, which frankly you and I, none of us on like are probably like, what? It's another case of artichokes, but they can see the differences. And I do think that gritty people have a desire for dopamine, for stimulation, for positive experience, but maybe the way that they're getting it could be different.
That's interesting. Yeah, it almost sounds like resisting shiny object syndrome or impulsivity is potentially an element of the perseverance element of grit.
I mean, I want to, especially given the format of this very special engagement that we're doing here, I want to say I read A Range by David Epstein, and I know you
Great
guys,
book.
right? Great
Yeah.
book, great guy too, right?
Yeah,
like,
great guy too.
What
Super
a
guy.
great guy.
Yeah, we'll have him on soon too.
So when you talk
bring you
to
all back.
David, right? Like, about pursuing shiny objects, is it right? So one of the things, of course, that David argues centrally in Range is that that you can get into like talk about myth busting, right? That excellence is not from specializing really, really early in life necessarily, and not looking left and not looking right, and I don't know, deciding to be like whatever you're going to be, like Will Shortz did actually, like so early in life, because he really is the exception. And I think the vast majority of high performing adults did a lot of exploration, a lot of trial and error, as Scott might say, like a lot of sampling before they, began to narrow in on something. And even then they probably cross fertilize a lot. But I think there's something really powerful there, because I have had parents who are like, oh, my daughter is 7. Like, I have decided that they're going to be like a world-class biochemist. It's like, what? Like, that makes no sense, because life should be mostly sampling early, and then at some point, increasingly specialization with cross-fertilization, I think. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, well, there's a great phrase with respect to career development: build a pyramid, not a ladder, in terms of how you move up and progress, which I like related to that.
And I mean, one, I think it's you need I think range, the wide base is really incredible. One of the things that so pattern recognition, when you link ideas together, that produces a little bit of dopamine. Dopamine drives focus. Focus drives flow. So there's a creative trigger for flow, right? It's when you start linking ideas. It's why creative ideas spiral. One leads to the next, right? That sort of thing. Most people tend to specialize as they get older. And when you specialize, the distance essentially between thoughts is really narrow. So it doesn't tend to produce a big dopamine reaction. You tend to get you get that little crossword puzzle high. I filled in the right answer, and I feel a little bit better, but you don't get a big wow that can really start to drive flow. And one of the things that we really tell people is try to read 25 to 50 pages a day outside specialty. So you're actually giving the pattern recognition system raw material to work with, to find connections, to trigger creativity.
I'm curious if you've had the same experience I've had, which is that, well, now finally I have a specialty, and I say finally because I didn't start graduate school until I was 32, so I'm a real late bloomer in many ways. But now that I do have a specialty, and I really identify as a psychologist, I feel like I experience everything as a psychologist. I'm always asking, like, why'd they do that? Like, what was the motivation? Like, how'd they do that? I feel like when I do cross fertilize, like I'll just, watch Top Chef, or I'll, I have this like book of children's poems that's like in my bathroom, and like I just pick it up and I like randomly read one. I don't know what your experience is, but mine is that because I have some depth, because I do have a specialty, it enables me to read those extra 25 to 50 pages of things that are really outside. And I'm always sort of drawing connections actually back to my work, right? And that's to me like the thrill, right? So I think that if you really do have something which is deep and a craft, and you can see all the nuances that are, one bonus is that it's hard to be bored, because you it's a lens through which, like, the rest of your experience, whatever it is refracted.
I totally think that's true. I think that the more I've learned about flow, the more fun neuroscience textbooks have become to me. Because I get to, right? It's not just reading a general textbook. I'm reading a general textbook to learn what it connects to about flow, that I think about, that sort of stuff I love. I think that's one of the best highs available on this planet to humans, actually.
Mm. And when we're really bored, it's very often because you're like, what is this? When students, of course, roll their eyes and sigh and slump their shoulders and say, like, what's the point of this? I think what they're saying is, I don't see how this is connected to anything I care about. And that produces the emotion of boredom, which, I think, well, I don't know what you guys think. In some ways, I think of boredom as the opposite of flow. Maybe flow has multiple opposites. But anyway, when you're really, really bored and you're crawling out of your skin, I don't think you're in flow.
I think you're totally right. I actually think extreme pain may be the opposite of flow. And because I tend to think of it in terms of choice.
Yeah, it's like voluntary, voluntary intentional engagement.
What can you think? In extreme pain, you can only think about the pain. It's the only, right? It's all your focus. In flow, right? It's anywhere you turn your attention, because you're in peak performance, you can start your choices. You have options. That's how I ingrain the spectrum. But boredom would definitely be on there, and it's you're looking at it from an engagement lens, which is totally right.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.